Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, there is a truism when it comes to being disabled, and it goes like this. If there is a room that you need to get into, and you use a wheelchair, the room will be inaccessible. And it happens every time. I was in my brother's wedding, and of course when I got there, there were 2 steps that I had to get up in order to get to the ceremony area. I had to be lifted in my wheelchair to get up to that level. How insensitive they were to get married in a location that was inaccessible. I wasn't the only one that was upset. I got up there. Now, what I'm going to tell you are 3 different stories of places and locations and events that happened in the last few months that were inaccessible and created a barrier to my being able to enjoy them or to get there. The first event happened a few months ago in July at the Humorous workshop, the area-wide Humorous workshop. We got there at 9:30. The event, the presentation was going to begin at 10, so I had plenty of time. The first barrier to access was that when I got there, I approached from the rear like everyone else was doing, and I noticed there was this steep, long, intimidating staircase to get up to the 2nd floor. So obviously I couldn't go that way. I did find out that there was an elevator, so I went there. I thought, okay, I'll take the elevator to the 2nd floor, right? Guess what? Push the button for floor number 2, it doesn't stop there. You press it, I kept pressing it, and it would just press it, go in and out, and nothing happened. So I went back into the 1st floor cafe. I asked a person there, and they said, oh, well, there's a key that you have to use for the elevator that will get you to the 2nd floor, and the only person that has that key is the manager. He'll be in shortly. It's 9:45 now. 10 minutes later, okay, so I'm nail biting. 10 minutes later, the manager comes in, and I tell him the story. He says, oh, okay, and he uses his key, and we get up to the 2nd floor. He explains that the reason that you can't get access to the 2nd floor without the manager is because there are sensitive documents on the 2nd floor. How stupid is that? Anyone can walk up the back, right, and just get to the 2nd floor. The entire meeting was being held there. So it didn't make any sense, but I got there. So guess what? Now I am on the 2nd floor. Yay! I'm ready to go to the meeting. I roll to the meeting, and guess what I got? You're not going to believe this. There were actually 3 steps to get from where I was into the meeting room. Never fails, right? That's what I told you. Well, through some troubleshooting, somebody came up with the idea of using a board that was in the room, a flat board, to use as a ramp. Smart idea. So I was able to get into the room. It's now about 5 after 10. There were lots of congratulatory remarks, and they told me I could sit up in front. What? Is that a consolation prize for being disabled? So that was an event that marked the beginning of the Humorous workshop. It was not humorous. The challenge with something like that is that, unlike you, where there's very few areas where you can get access to, those of us who roll through life are challenged by access all the time. In fact, the Americans with Disability Act was written in order to level the playing field so that we'll all be able to access and enjoy the same facilities and events and whatever it is that you do. I now carry a short ramp with me in my car whenever I go someplace that might have a barrier to access. That was a lesson learned. The second event happened up in Berkeley a few months ago. I went to a trendy restaurant in an old building. It should have been my first clue. Well, I needed to use the restroom, and I was directed to the rear of the restaurant. When I got there, I noticed that there was a handicap placard on the door, and I said, yes, there's going to be access. I opened the door only to find a very small room with hand grips, like that's going to really help me. And I realized I couldn't use the bathroom. So I went back out and asked a different person if there was a restroom that I could use. He directed me to the restaurant next door. How stupid is that? The last example of a barrier was when I went to the back to school night a few weeks ago. Now, this school where my daughter is a senior now, it will be actually the first time I've ever been to back to school night. My wife goes every year. So I had to go. But I was nervous because the school is the only school in the Heart District that's built on a hill and built in a tiered fashion. Well, when we got there, I realized I had to go from where I was up to the higher level. We found an elevator. Same thing. There's a key that's needed, right? Nobody's around, so what do? We have to exit the school and come back in at the higher level. And I missed the class because there's a very short period of time to get from one teacher to the next, from one room to the next. After I was done with several classes, I realized I had to go back down to the bottom. So I was dismayed because there wasn't anybody around. Finally, we did find somebody who looked like an administrator. My wife's very good at that. And she had the key, and so we went back down. But it was another example. It was just frightening. So I got down, had time to finish, and we left. Now, to summarize all of this, I would have to go with what comedian Benny Hill said. And he said, well, nobody complains when things go right, but also nobody complains when things go wrong. No parachutes are perfect. Confucius is known to have said, a gem requires a hard stone to polish it, and a man requires a lot of trials to become perfect. I've had plenty of trials, not perfect, but I've had plenty of trials over the years. Madam President, the Toastmaster.
If you have a minute.